the great acquisition, looking for new donors. Who's not doing that right now, right? We all need new donors. But in particular, we're in kind of a unique time where finding new donors is going to look different than it did previously. And we put together some really great, relevant, recent data about how newer donors, younger donors specifically, are behaving, what their preferences are, so we can talk through some of the things that will enable you to craft your messaging so that it speaks to them. Excuse me. Cold here in Jersey today, very nice. Going down, Louisville, Kentucky. Did I say that right? Louisville. It's not Louisville, Louisville, right? Saskatchewan, Mississippi Gulf Coast. Awesome. All right. Montana. Nicole, I'm going to be your neighbor-ish soon. I am moving to Wyoming from Orlando. It's going to be different, very different. 6 seasons sunny, very nice. Michigan. Yay, Nicole. All right, we're going to have to, it's probably only like an 8-hour drive, but we'll prep coffee one day. Awesome. All right, guys. Well, it is 2:02. So I'm going to start with the content and get moving. I'm going to keep an eye on the chat as I can throughout the presentation. If you have a question, drop it in there. If it makes sense to answer it right away, I'll do my best to do that. If not, my buddy Rachel, who is on the back end, one of my fellow Feathrins, is going to also keep track of the questions that are asked. So when we get to the end, we'll have some time to answer those questions if I don't get to them right away. But let's go ahead and jump in. Let's talk all about finding new donors in these changing times. So first and foremost, who am I and why do I have any business telling you about finding new donors, right? My name is Kimberly Bottom. I am the Director of Community Engagement at Feathr. But before that, and in the midst of all of that, I'm a human too, right? Here are some of my interests. I'm a storyteller at heart. I was a theater major in college, and then I was a news producer, a content creator for nonprofits and associations. And now working at Feathr, I absolutely love how this tool brings the valuable message that you have to your audiences. I did graduate from the University of Central Florida. My adorable dog, Blue, he is almost 13. I also teach boxing and I love music. And fun fact, Feathr has a band once a year as our local fundraiser, and I participate in that band as well. So if you're ever in the Gainesville, Florida area and you want some good music, let us know. All right, guys. If for anybody here that is not familiar with Feathr, maybe you saw this without knowing too much about the tool or what it is, just a quick bit of background. We are a self-serve platform made specifically for nonprofits to help you do your best marketing, fundraising, and engagement with your audiences, right? We want you to be able to get your message in front of the right people at the time that is right for them with a message that is relevant to them. And the way that we do that is to really meaningfully help segment and group your audiences together so you can create curated messages that really land with them and drive them to action in an automated way. Because you know what? Taking a lunch break is important. So when you can automate something and get some time back in your day, that is the goal at Feathr, is to do that as much as we possibly can. And if you're looking for more valuable resources, Feathr has something what we call the Good Marketing Brief. So outside of just these webinars, we send out a weekly newsletter that's got articles, tips, tricks, specifically for nonprofit marketing. If you would like to sign up for the marketing brief, Rachel just dropped that poll in right now. Click yes to sign up. If you don't want to, that's fine. Click the no, or if you're already subscribed, go ahead and click that as well. But that's going to enable you to get that just weekly reminder of all things relevant in nonprofit marketing. We source content from many different providers and many different thought leaders in the industry, as well as our own thought leaders at Feathr here that work with over 1,000 nonprofits on their marketing efforts every day. So, all right, what are we going to talk about today in terms of finding new donors? We're going to cover first and foremost how giving is changing. The good news is giving is still alive and well. People are still philanthropic, but the way that they maneuver is different. We're going to talk about the personas of the next generation that you're looking to target, some of the tools and the channels that are best for getting in front of them. And then the one thing that it always changes, so it's so hard to do, is the strategy, the budgeting. What metrics am I looking at to make sure that this stuff is actually working? We're going to go through all of that today. First and foremost, though, before we jump in, why do we care, right? Like, why can't we just wait a little bit longer before we have to focus on, engaging the next generation? Can I kind of just do with the donors that I have right now? Because right now, there's a lot of focus on major donors, right? Giving is up, but number of donors is actually down. And that means you've got a small percentage giving a very large amount. And that's wonderful and that's extremely generous of them, but it's not sustainable. So we need to engage those younger donors now before they reach that major donor status, because if you wait, you might miss your chance. And this is the chance that we're talking about. So a significant transfer of wealth is currently underway. And about 18 trillion with a T, guys, $18 trillion is estimated to go to charity in the next 2 decades. That is a huge amount of money that you could absolutely take part in, but if you don't engage the younger generation, it's not going to happen. The good news, right? We care about this as well, is that giving is up, right? Individual donations blew every other category out of the water for funds raised in 2024 and 2025. So the 2025 annual giving report showed that individual giving, biggest contributor by far to nonprofits, more than 4 times the funds given than any other category. So if you're thinking like, maybe I'll lean into grants or corporate sponsors, those are not bad things to do, but individual giving is the future of sustainable revenue for nonprofits, 100%. And then also, nearly every category of nonprofits saw an increase in giving recently. Every type of nonprofit brought in more donor funds over the past year, some technically less, as you'll see on here, if you account for inflation, but the numbers are pretty much up and to the right. So if your nonprofit specifically is in education, public benefit, or internal affairs, even more eyeballs on you right now because there were double-digit percentage increases in giving for all three of these categories. So as you can see, as Gabe Cooper, who was the chair of the Giving USA Foundation, or the vice chair, excuse me, is basically just saying that giving is up. Broad increases in giving across all the subsectors show that philanthropy and nonprofit sectors are thriving, right? Over the past year, they're going to continue to do that. So TLDR, too long, didn't read. Giving is up, but the way people give is changing. And we need to know what those changes are to get our piece of this $18 trillion pie that is potentially out there over the next 2 decades. So let's talk about those changes in giving trends. It's not something that's incoming. It is something that is actively happening right now. The future is now, old man. I think this is Malcolm in the Middle, right? It's going on. So we need to definitely, if we're not already strategizing to do this, it needs to be something that is happening in the immediate future. So first and foremost, the changes that we are seeing, right? Younger generation, they seek long-term hands-on involvement with issues that are important to them. Guys, this is great news. They want to support you long-term. They're not a one and done. They actually care about the mission that you serve, right? The key word here is issues. I'm not just going to give to the Red Cross because they have brand recognition. I'm going to give to them because they're going to continue to prove to me that they are using the money that I'm giving them in the way that means something to me. So if you can get somebody on your side, they want to stay there for a while. They rely heavily on technology to inform their giving decisions. We know this, right? Everybody out there, give me a little hand in the chat if you're like, yeah, I stare at a screen probably 6 to 8 hours a day. Don't you love that reminder from your iPhone every Sunday about the way that you're staring at a lot of mailing checks anymore. They invest their time in looking for trustworthy and transparent nonprofits to support. Trustworthy and transparent, and that equates constant communication. You can't take that gift and say thank you so much and then expect them to go digging through your website or your social feeds every day. Close, I'm an elder millennial. I love that phrase, right? Just makes me feel so young and vibrant. But Gen Z, so we're talking 1997 to 2012, and millennials, 1981 to 1996, again, focus on supporting issues over organizations. They care more about your mission than your brand. They consider themselves active social change agents. So the reason they care about your mission is because it's not about status for them. It's about actually changing the world. As, you know, that phrase itself might sound cliched. It's absolutely true. They want to know the good that your nonprofit is doing. Obviously, tech forward approach to learning, advocating, making donations, and they participate in crowdfunding more than the older generations. Anybody here heard of this woman, Taylor Swift? You might have heard of her. Her friend recently put on one of the social platforms that she used to scroll GoFundMe and hit the reach donation button like it was the like button on Facebook. So this is a younger person with means who wants to make a change, and she's just going through and looking for stories that mean something to her, and she's giving to them. Now, obviously, don't we all wish we had Taylor funds? or Taylor Swift's funds to do that. But that's kind of where the mindset is at for sure. Elliot, I'm taking a look. Oh dear, Karen, I hope I'm not freezing for everybody else. We'll see. I will be sharing the slide deck. Yes, absolutely. And then somebody just had a question. Oh, I'm seeing a lot of AI assistants. Okay, when you say constant communication, do you mean emails? I don't just mean emails, Elliot. I actually mean all the various channels that you can reach them nowadays. And we're actually going to cover all of those channels in here today. So email, advertising, SMS, all these different ways that you can get on somebody in front of, or get on somebody's radar on a screen that's in front of them. And then obviously the younger generation, they also give through social media-based events hosted by influencers. They being Gen Z and millennials, tend to trust more an individual human than an organization. So even if they love you and they know you, if you have somebody that doesn't technically have any skin in the game, advocating on your behalf, that is such a powerful tool for a generation that's a little wary of big institutions and the trustworthiness of those institutions. So again, leaning into those influencers, they don't have to be macro influencers. We're talking people in your community, people with, somewhere around a couple thousand followers. It's a really powerful thing to help you build up that brand trust. So if you're focusing your efforts for the younger generation, you want to evoke action through storytelling. Again, it's not about you, it's about what you are doing for the cause. And you have to be online. I think we know that, guys, but I had to put it on the slide because we just have to write it in black and white. If you're not focusing at least a meaningful amount of your marketing budget to digital efforts, you got to catch up. The time is now. And you really want to explore partnerships with other people and organizations to expand your network and your impact. Again, those influencers, you probably have some corporate opportunities in your purview where that corporation wants to get in front of the same people you do, the younger generation, and putting their brand next to your good is good for them as it is for you. So that's something that is an opportunity as well. So if you're not already prioritizing these three things, guys, you're behind the curve. So we definitely want to make sure that you catch up. Okay. Just spoke to my development manager about mutual aid being the modern donor class. Love that. Trezor, I hope I said your name right. And how do you find influencers? I actually have a slide on that, Karen. We're going to get to that in just a moment. So here we go. All right, who are these folks? These folks being me, you, many of the people here on the call, but let's just get a breakdown of who they are first and foremost. So millennials, we're talking 21.81% of the population on planet Earth. It is the largest population as it stands. The age range is 29 to 44, and on average, we're spending about 6.5 hours looking at a screen. Now, a screen can be my phone, it can be my connected TV, it can be my laptop, right? That's actually kind of low. I think I'm above that, unfortunately, because I work from home, above that threshold, but that's the average. And then we tend to use Facebook, Instagram, LinkedIn, and Twitter as our core social media platforms. Again, maybe a little bit less on Facebook as that generation kind of gets away from that platform, but those are the four to lean into. We actually prefer a variety of content over the younger generation. So we can actually do things like podcasts, longer form videos. We have a slightly longer attention span because many of us grew up when the internet was brand new, right? And we didn't have that as like an inherent part of our childhood. So we typically browse on a mobile device, but make transactions on a computer. Anybody like Google flights and then just not feel right about purchasing it on your phone and you have to go to a laptop to do it? Like that's the official way to do it. It's not just you, right? This is definitely something that is a trend for this particular generation. And then we are likely to convert through traditional online ads and social media marketing because we're familiar with these things and we've grown up with these things. We have an inherent trust for them. So going directly from an ad to a donation page, we don't have a problem with that. It's a little different for the younger generations. Are the stats behind this population US based? They are, and I do actually have, Lydia, a slide at the end that has a link to all of the reports that I used to put together this presentation. So if you want to go digging, you absolutely can. All right, Gen Z. They are just behind us. I'm saying us like everybody, just behind me in terms of the size of the population, about just under 21% of the population. This is 13 to 28. So there is actually a chunk of this generation that doesn't have purchasing power yet. They kind of have to ask mom and dad if they want to, spend money. So that can create an inherent challenge. Typically uses a little bit of Instagram, but mostly the Snapchat and the TikTok, the very, very quick, you have to keep your content extremely brief to get in front of them type of platforms. they are twice as likely to purchase online as millennials. So they are doing almost no purchasing in person anymore. Not many people carry cash, right? So this is definitely a trend that is going to continue on. They're actually a little more wary of those traditional ads, right? They lean a little more toward social media and influencer marketing, again, because these are real human beings, real, as much as we can be on social media, who are saying, I vouch for this organization because, and I'm just a human, I'm not an organization. And they're more likely to convert via TikTok or Instagram, right? TikTok shop. Now that's very different. Consumer marketing is not the same as asking for donations or fundraising, but they're comfortable with that process. So let's put them together because we can't just focus on one or the other. All of them care less about status and more about impact. They're not trying to boast that they donated to this nonprofit. They actually want that nonprofit to do the good that they are advertising that they will do. They're a little more skeptical about the institutions and partisan politics, and you have to be transparent and authentic, right? It's going to hit a millennial or a Gen Z person a lot worse if you accidentally send that email that says, "Hi, name." That feels really inauthentic, right? So you want to make sure your message to them feels like it really is about them. They have less money than older generations, obviously, but they place equal value on other assets: time, social networks, leadership skills, ideas. I mean, their networks, guys, are probably more valuable than their dollars at this point because they are able to advocate on your behalf. So just because engaging with these younger donors now is not going to equate anywhere near to the money, the revenue that you're getting from your major donors, does not mean that those efforts are not worthwhile. Because right now, what you're doing is building a much larger base of individual givers that down the road, you're going to have a much bigger list of potential major donors who can support you and step into that role once your major donors are no longer with us. So just a couple examples or suggestions for how to phrase things when you are reaching out to these younger generations. So let's say you're running a capital campaign. Traditionally, there might be something where you can get a brick or a bench or a seat if you're a performing arts center named in your honor, right? That is a model that speaks a little to the older generation that do care about status. I want my name on something versus, let's say, a peer-to-peer competition to select design and impact elements for a children's hospital. If I knew that I could crowdfund to make a meaningful space for these wonderful kids who are going through the most impossible time, and then I get to see that come to fruition, what an impact that would have on me as someone who cares about the impact of what I'm doing rather than just putting my name on a seat. Again, talk to them in their terms. It is less about dollars and more about impact. So instead of having a thermometer with dollars raised, we've all seen that, right? Consider pounds of trash removed from the ocean. Consider families who have a meal this holiday season. Frame it in ways that you know that they can understand the value of their dollar to the value of the impact that it has. 10.6 hours a day. Yes, I know. It's staggering, but it's true. And that's why being online is so, so incredibly important. So let's talk about some fundraising models that are very, very impactful for this younger generation, and then can create this kind of sustainable model for your revenue through donations, individual gifts. So first and foremost, smaller recurring gifts as a subscription model is, I know, something that we're all focusing on right now, right? Building that sustainer program, creating that community of people that want to be part of something in an ongoing way. And it's just the way that we're used to spending money now. The subscription economy is here. By the way, if you can find Netflix for $6.99 a month, let me know because I'm pretty sure I'm paying like $30. But anyway, it just debits from my account and I know that it's going to be that way. And that's something that the younger generation is very comfortable with. So it obviously the gifts seem smaller at first, but the sustainability of that revenue can be really impactful for an organization. But in order to do that well, you have to make it a community and you have to have a consistent, as we call, helpers high update. So if they're going to continually give you their money every month, you need to continually stay in front of them every month in order to tell them why they should continue to pay you, right? Out of their very hard-earned money. So we have a client called Guiding Light. They are a recovery center in Grand Rapids, Michigan. They call their sustainers light keepers, which I love. And they are so great about automating emails and advertisements to go out very specifically to that community with the updates about what the Lightkeeper program is able to enable within their mission. So again, that's the good thing about this. You can see that you can automate the engagement. So I know you guys are thinking like, what? I have to create a whole nother sequence for like weekly or monthly just for another group. You can absolutely automate that process. And automate does not mean losing the human touch. Automate just means saying, I know what I want to say to these people, and I know what I would say based on how much they gave or what they gave to. And then once you set those systems in place, the automation just happens in the background and you can update and tweak it. You don't have to now manually send a million more emails or ads or whatever the case may be. So automation options are out there. Um, all right, just looked at Netflix. Wow, you do 9, 10. Okay, TC, I'm gonna have to get with you after this call to figure out how to get my Netflix account down to that. Samantha is asking, what do you recommend to demonstrate impact if the organization doesn't really scale? For example, we're a residential program for people with disabilities, can't increase the number of people impact. Exactly. So, Samantha, something like that, individual stories, obviously with the permission of the people who are part of your program, are so powerful when you are helping individual human beings, right? So anytime you can storytell about someone's life who is impacted, whether that be they got the equipment that they needed to be more enabled in the world, or they got an opportunity to maybe do a job that they wouldn't have otherwise done. So craft those stories around the people that are being impacted, and you don't need an endless supply. You really can create either one longer form story that can be chopped into little pieces to be, repurposed on social media and ads and those types of things. If you do actually want a great example of how or what that looks like, our Guiding Light customers do a wonderful job featuring real people who went through their program and came out on the other side, repair relationships with their families and those types of things. So visit their website. It's guidinglightworks.org. And you can read like the impact stories about the people that were helped through the program. So that would be something that I would suggest doing, is just highlighting the faces, the human people that are actually getting the help that you guys are providing. All right. And then gift matching campaigns are also a great model for fundraising for the nonprofit or for the younger generation, because I might not have a lot of money to give. And if I'm about to give and I go, is this $15 really going to make a difference? If I see that it will be matched, I will not only be more likely to give, 85% of donors are more likely to give if there's a match, I will be more inclined to give more because the impact will be greater. So I would highly suggest trying to do some sort of gift matching program. And if you're wondering, like, okay, who's going to match the gift? Again, you've got those corporate or major donors in the area that want to get in front of this younger generation in the same way that you do. And they would be, I'm sure, more than happy to put their name with the goodwill of your organization as, I would love to be your gift match sponsor. So just an option to help really drive action for people that are curious if their small gift is really going to make an impact. All right, moving on to recurring giving. In terms of where it stands today, I know we're all focused on either building a program or beefing up the program that we have. Feathr releases a State of Nonprofit Marketing report every year. The report that we released this year, we have a very, as the Zoomers would say, accomplished a mid level of actual recurring giving. Most people say that I might have a strategy, but it's not something that's like the focus, or it's not really working very well. It's kind of okay at this. So if you're in this bucket, I wanted to show you this slide to let you know that you're not alone. You don't have to have a locked in perfect recurring giving program going on right now to be doing this well. You just have to be shifting your focus to this individual sustainer type giving to really tap into the benefits that it provides. And here's why. So in 2025, again, the State of Nonprofit Marketing report showed that these were the top 4 things that people were focusing on moving into this year. That was brand awareness, donor acquisition, donor retention, and engaging the younger generation. So if you are looking to engage the younger generation through a sustainer program, you are accomplishing all 4 of these top priorities that all the other nonprofits that we polled also said they are looking to do. So since we are Feathr, and we are not in the business of killing birds over here, a strategic focus on acquiring and retaining younger gens feeds 4 birds with 1 scone. So I'd like you to replace the killing birds with stones analogy that you have in your repertoire on Feathr's behalf, because we love our birds over here. But seriously, this approach is going to check off so many of the things that really are important in the nonprofit space as we move forward into 2026. And for those donors that might not be ready to give you that money, right? Maybe you do have those, the Gen Z that aren't quite autonomous enough yet to pull out a credit card. Create advocates. This is a way to get them invested in what you do and give you the other things that they see of value outside of money. Like I said, their ideas, their social network, etc. So their first action might not be a donation. It might be a peer-to-peer campaign. It might be just liking and commenting and sharing the things that you post on social media. So offer those alternative ways like volunteering, etc. That can really make them feel part of your organization without having to make a donation. And then partner with the institutions, workplaces, universities, etc. in your area, especially if you are community focused nonprofit, to build trust with them. So again, that's also connecting those universities and workplaces, institutions with that younger generation in a more meaningful way for them as well. And guys, when you can, hire them. Put them on your staff, put them on your advisory board. Having them in the room is going to give you such a unique perspective on how their mind works. And at the very least, will just give you insight that you might not have otherwise currently within the walls of your institution, virtual walls, real walls, whatever that may be. All right, check in for questions. I think we're all caught up. Um, Now let's talk about some of the things you guys have actually asked questions on. How do I get in front of them, right? Like, how do I actually reach these people? Because they are probably this guy. They're I'm guessing he's probably like taking a course while talking to somebody on the phone and making breakfast at the same time. Like this is us now. We are highly multitasking, highly distracted. So you have to reach them not only repeatedly, but in multiple different places because an invite, email inbox might work for one person, and for people like me, it might not, right? I tend to get really overwhelmed by 100 emails when I open my email every day, and I just delete them all because it's not that I don't care. I just don't want to deal with that level of stress that early in the morning. So, Alicia says, as me, a Gen Zer who has a monitor with tabs open and my phone open at this moment. See? Yep, that's us. We are all here. We are all staring at screens. We are all distracted. So, what might seem to you like, ooh, this is too much, probably actually isn't in the grand scheme of things because so much else is going on outside of what you are actually doing to communicate with them. So, let's talk about that. First and foremost, if you want to reach new people who don't know who you are, guess what? They have to be anonymous. You can't know them by their first name and their email address and their mailing address because privacy laws, right? But there are ways to reach anonymous people who are pre-qualified so that you know that you're not just casting a net that's super wide or trying to boil the ocean by finding a whole bunch of people. You really are curating a group of anonymous people. And one of those ways is something called geofencing. So this is great. If you're a community nonprofit, drop a little hand in the chat. Community-based nonprofits, you know where your people are, right? If you're a humane society, people who shop at your Petco, people who might visit the vegan restaurant in town, like you have an understanding where the good people in your community might actually be located. Geofencing is a great tool for you. So this is an example from the United Way of Asheville and Buncombe County, and they were serving these holiday book drive ads to people at Barnes and Nobles in their area. So holiday book drive, philanthropic in the Asheville area. Let's geofence this. And what geofencing means is you drop a pin on a map, draw a circle around that pin, and anybody whose device walks into that circle can now see the content through ads just like this one. So little boxes and banners that are served on websites all over the internet. It's not just social media, guys. It's weather.com. It's the New York Times. So the way that this works, it's called programmatic advertising, and it just puts that little box and banner in front of that device wherever it goes next on the internet. So obviously you do have to have a software provider. Feathr offers this service, but Feathr is by no means the only service that offers geofencing, and it just allows you to get this message in front of people based on where they are located. So some examples of how to use this if you're looking for the younger generation specifically, college campuses are great. Schools, if you're looking for the Gen Z generation, so like high schools, etc. If you're looking for parents, the pickup line at that school. Sporting events are great as well, and then shopping centers because typically those people have disposable income. So these are all just examples, but if you're a community-focused nonprofit, you're going to know where your people are. So we want to find people by who they are as well. I might be dating myself here as an elder millennial, but if anybody remembers Build-A-Bear, This is build a donor. So you get to pick the characteristics and build your donor and stitch it together and it comes into fruition. So what you're allowed to do is say, based on who this human is who I want to get in front of. That can be age, that can be gender, it can be income, it can be political affiliation, it can be past purchases. There are so many categories that you can tap into. And I know you're probably thinking like, whoa, 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 whoa. How does the internet know all that stuff? When you live your life online, you leave little breadcrumbs of what you care about and who you are, even though we are not able to see who these people are. You don't know it's Kimberly Bottom in Orlando, Florida. You could see a woman in her 40s who likes to support organizations that focus on women, which I do. So when I give to an organization that stops sex trafficking or provides educational and job opportunities to women in underserved areas, now I'm going to start to see messages from other organizations like that because of that past donation or that past action. So all of that is being collected. There are data providers who can get messages in front of people based on those characteristics. So demographic targeting looks like age, gender, education. So for example, let's say you are a foster care agency and your ideal demographic are parents in that younger generation range who have enough income to be a meaningful donor, somewhere over six figures, right? That would be a great category for you. Also based on affinity. So shopping at the children's place, donating to children's charities. All of these are things that you can tap into just to get that initial message, just like this one you see here, which is actually a foster care agency in Phoenix, Arizona, Hope in a Future. They were able to get this message in front of parents that are talking specifically about helping children. And oh, by the way, there's a tax credit in it for you. So it's a really powerful message when you can know who you're targeting specifically, because that message can be curated to speak to them. And then also you can find younger donors by what they're looking for. This is getting a little trickier on the tech side of things as the AI wave comes over and all of the search efforts are no longer websites and it's all AI instead, but there is still meaningful work to be done in search targeting. So there are a couple different ways to do it. Search engine optimization just means that optimizing your website with the right keywords to make sure that it organically makes its way to the top of a list in a search. But also there's SEM, which is search engine marketing. That's where you pay that search engine to cut the line, essentially move your website to the top of the list with that little check mark that says you're sponsored. And then there is search display marketing, where when somebody searches for something and then they leave the search page, you can reach them on other websites outside of the search page, serving these little boxes and banners like you see here. So if you're going to lean into this, do your research, but also understand what your audience will likely be searching for. Recently, at an event, I co-presented with one of our sponsors or one of our customers at Feathr, who is a homeless shelter in LA County, California. And they said we would say things like unhoused or someone experiencing homelessness. We don't say the homeless anymore because it's not their identity. It's just what they're going through right now. But part of their search terms are help the homeless. Why? Because that's what people say. And they do need to be educated and brought up to speed on all those things, but until they know who you are, they're not going to have that information. So make sure your search list includes things that you might not use in your marketing, but you think would help you find the people who are interested in supporting what you do. And then also, guys, this is not cheating, I promise. If you include organizations who do similar work to you in your search list, that's just a good practice. So if you're a local food bank and one of your terms is Meals on Wheels, that's fair because you guys serve similar audiences. So again, think about that in terms of you might not be partnering with these organizations, but nonprofits are a little different in terms of marketing because we're not necessarily in competition with Meals on Wheels because donors behave differently than consumers. So we can kind of lean on each other to stay in front of those audiences that will support what we do. And then guess what? All three of those things I just mentioned, based on where they are, who they are, and what they're looking for, won't work if you don't follow up a lot. I've had tons of people say, hey, I tried geofencing once and results weren't great. Guess what? It's because you got their attention once and then the dog barked, or the kid was crying, or the doorbell rang, and squirrel, I got totally distracted. You need to follow up with the 84% of people who visit your website and don't complete an action when they're there. That's the reality nowadays. So this is called website retargeting. You include a piece of code on the back of your website, and it allows you to see what devices visit the website, what they click on while they're there, And then when they ultimately leave without completing an action, you can serve them an appropriate follow-up message based on their interests. This is the phenomenon behind the shoes following you around the internet. It's not just any shoe, it's the shoe that you looked at, and that's just the internet saying, hey, Kimberly, you cared about these shoes. I'm going to remind you until you have just the right moment to purchase them that you want these shoes. It is the same thing for nonprofits in terms of how the technology works. So again, it keeps your message in front of people. If you're going to do this, make sure you're sharing stories. Again, we're not selling things. It can't just be an image. It's got to tell them why they should care and what impact their action will actually have. But also be a little wary of being too thirsty, right? The donate today might be a little bit much if they've only been to your website once. The learn more message might be a little bit softer at the beginning of the journey with that donor, right? I have found that overexposure to our nonprofit can be the reverse. Bruce, I will tell you, if you have a budget to serve enough ads to actually annoy your audience, that is incredible. And maybe that will warrant a slightly different strategy. But amongst the consumer-based marketing that is out there, your message will be pretty like small in comparison, or not small, but won't be happening as often as you think. So some of our most successful nonprofits who are, for example, that Hope in a Future, they Phoenix, Arizona based smaller nonprofit, their middle of funnel, their retargeting ads, they served on average 43 messages to each person that they were targeting. 43 messages over the course of like a couple weeks to a month. It sounds like a lot, but in the grand scheme of things, when I'm seeing several hundred messages a day, it really isn't. And it's nice that I'm seeing a nonprofit message amongst the hundreds of consumer messages that are pushing me to buy something. So again, if you are getting feedback that you are in front of people too much, that's actually a blessed problem to have because it's actually very difficult to do that nowadays with the competition around consumer-based marketing. All right, moving on. Social media, right? Social media is not the only place you want to be, but it is a place that you do want to be, and it is not one size fits all for the younger generation. So just a quick overview, millennials, like we said, Facebook, Instagram, LinkedIn, Twitter, those are the core channels. Slightly longer attention span, you can kind of A/B test with the content length and figure out what is good for the individual human. And we like that variety, right? I like my short TikTok videos, but I also like listening to true crime podcasts. So it's a little bit of both. And then again, we are old enough to make those purchasing decisions. Threads as well, absolutely. That's not something that was in the data that I pulled because a lot of the data is the later half of 24 to the early half of 25, and Threads is relatively new. I will bet that that's going to show up in the 2026 reports that will be coming out soon enough. Gen Z, TikTok, Snapchat, those are the primary channels. And that's because the attention span, right, is very similar. It's super, super fast engagement. Again, shorter attention and span, short videos, mobile optimized content. Make sure that you are getting your point across in the first 2 to 3 seconds or you'll lose them, right? That is so, so important. And then also leveraging those influencers that have a relevant and engaged audiences. So let's talk about that a little because I know there was a question about influencers as part of this process. This is me trying to do a TikTok dance. Please don't ask. If you want to find an influencer, you want to find somebody who will feel authentic to your brand. So you don't want to just go with the person with the most followers because if they really can't speak the message as well as you would speak it to your audience, then it's not going to work. So you want to make sure that authenticity is key, somebody that really is invested in what you're doing. And as nonprofits, it's best to aim for the micro influencers. So we're talking 5,000 to 50,000 followers is probably a sweet spot because they have that best combo of they're able to engage with an audience that size well, but they're still reaching a meaningful amount of people. TikTok and Instagram are most used by nonprofits per M&R Benchmark's 2025 survey this year. That could change again, Bruce, next year as Threads, Blue Sky, other types of platforms kind of gain traction there. But they're also, these level of influencers are a little easier to reach and they have more time to collaborate with you, right? If you can get Taylor Swift, or that's probably not feasible, or somebody that is a little more famous, that's great, but where are you on their list of priorities? So you want somebody that really can lean into doing the work that you need them to do, and they're going to feel like they have an impact that when you share like, hey, your efforts brought us X in donations or drove X amount of people to our website, that they're going to go, yay, right? Like, not only is it good for them, but like they are also probably of that generation where their impact is a driving force behind why they do what they do. So again, regularly showing the impact of those influencers' contributions, not only to them, but to the audience that they serve, is a very powerful way to reinforce their continued engagement with you. And then TikTok specifically for nonprofits, I get a lot of questions, especially at conferences and whatnot, about is TikTok worth the time? Because you do have a very short span of visibility on TikTok, and you have to create very specific content. It can be worth it for overall general awareness, maybe not so much for actually driving revenue. It is the top of the funnel strategy for sure. We'll talk about that a little bit more here in a moment. But again, 15 to 60 seconds long. 60 seconds is getting really long, guys. 15 to 30 for TikTok is a good amount of time. Tell stories that show humanity. Put people on the screen first, not text first, not your logo first, right? Put the people that you're impacting on the screen. And then direct quotes from volunteers, from people who are impacted, like make it very human. So TikTok for Good is the official hub for charities. So inspiration, examples, all that types of stuff. If you haven't checked out TikTok for Good yet and you're interested in TikTok, it's a great place to start. And then this is a great thing to try, but guys, be realistic about sustainability. I'm going to guess that most of us have lean, mean marketing teams. We do not have an army of marketers that one person can oversee our TikTok. They're probably doing multiple things, and TikTok is the lift. So I would say try something. 3 to 6 months is a good test period. If you're not seeing meaningful engagement, meaningful clicks, meaningful website traffic, it might not be your place, and that's okay. So just be mindful of that so that you don't throw all that eggs in that basket and it not really work out. And speaking of efficiency, because we're all so busy, if you're looking to engage the younger generation, both of them, right, millennials and Gen Z together, focus on that combined approach and the overlap, right? So your Instagram is a popular platform for both of them. Maybe you lean mostly into Instagram and see how that works for you. Remember to do a combined approach on social media. Organic social media, you might not be getting the traction that you think you're getting because most social media algorithms prioritize personal connections, families, friends, colleagues over organizations. So you might only be getting around 10% visibility. That's the average on Meta for visibility in front of your audience. So if you've got 1,000 followers, only about 100 of them are actually seeing your purely organic posts. You can boost those posts, pay the platform to get a little bit more visibility. 20 to 30% is about the average. And again, if you go viral on one post, right, there's a ton of engagement. That can skip the line in the algorithm, but that doesn't happen all the time. So that's more the exception, not the rule. Paid advertising on all these platforms, let's be real, guys. Social media is a business. They don't want to give it away for free. They want to give you the best option and the best visibility for the almighty dollar. So the paid ads will give you the best reach. It will give you more flexibility in how you can format your message. Again, you don't have to spend all your money here, but spending a little bit of money could be worthwhile if you feel like your people are on social media. And then for the younger gen, the best practices, again, focusing on those platforms that they're both on. And then the message must be clear. Impact, value, not just your logo, but what you're doing for the actual greater good that you are serving. Here are a couple tips before we get to questions on budgeting and key performance indicators for these particular channels. So we'll start with social media because we just talked about that. So the average return on ad spend, if you are paying for advertising, for fundraising specifically on these platforms, on Meta, for every dollar you spend, you get about 48 cents back. On TikTok, the average is 17 cents. This is coming from, again, M&R Benchmarks 2025. So you're probably going, wait. Why am I going to spend $1 to make 17 cents? That makes 0 cents. This just means that these platforms are better for increasing visibility than actually driving action. This is getting new audiences to care about what you do. This is getting them to visit your website. It's basically getting them to opt in to your donor journey. And it is a journey. It's not like, oh yeah, I care. Here's my money. That's not how it works, unfortunately. So I'm not telling you that working on social platforms or paying into social platforms is not worth it. I'm just saying manage your expectations around how much actual revenue will be tied to those efforts, because this is more of a top of funnel approach. TikTok has the highest organic reach, almost 15%. That's incredible, but the lowest engagement because of the volume of TikTok and because the videos are so short. So again, using that for mission awareness is great, but managing expectations for driving actual action. And then if you guys are doing anything outside of your website, right? This can apply to billboards, right? In real life things as well. Always when you can include what we call a UTM code. So that is something that is either a unique URL or a URL associated with a QR code that you might put on like a direct mailer. And that will tell you if somebody clicks that link or scans that code that that actually worked, right? So if I send out 15,000 mailers and I get an increase in my web traffic, and I'm like, oh, is it because of the mailers? This will tell you, yeah, it was, right? This actually worked. And that's a strategy that is worth investing in moving forward. So again, UTM codes to track where traffic is coming from. And if you're doing any work outside of your website, send people to your website. You do not own the data on Facebook. You do not own the data on LinkedIn. They own it, and then they can do whatever they want with it and charge you for it. You want to meet people there, but you want to bring them to your owned property where you can collect meaningful data about who they are, what they care about, so you can engage them properly moving forward. And then for search and display advertising outside of social media, so we're talking websites, connected TV, that kind of thing. The click-through rate for acquisition, like the benchmark, if you're like, what's a good click-through rate if I'm starting digital advertising? It's pretty low, right? For the top of funnel, 0.2 to 0.3% is about benchmark, about average. And then the cost per meal or cost per 1,000 impressions is just under $3 in terms of serving your message 1,000 times to an appropriate audience member. The cost per click average is about $5.40. But look at this, guys, the return on ad spend. You spend $1 on search, you get 200 or $2.23 back. Or on display advertising, you get just over $1 back. So these are the avenues where you will get more action, more conversion, more actual donations than just social media. So this is something where, again, it's part of your strategy to drive those people to action down in the funnel. And you can see M&R benchmarks actually found in 2024 going into 2025 that the nonprofit digital ad spend increased by 11% across nonprofits. So they were reinvesting 14 cents for every dollar of online revenue. So that's a ton, guys. Like to invest 14 cents just into digital advertising. That's a ton of money if you think about it in terms of budgeting. And not many nonprofits I talk to are prioritizing that. But M&R benchmarks found that the nonprofits doing very good digital work in the marketing space, this is where they're heading. So it's something to consider in terms of really allocating actual line item budget spend to advertising and not just the if we have a little extra, we'll try it, right? That's kind of the method moving forward. And then this is just a reminder for you guys. There's a lot here, right? We've covered a ton of ways to get in front of people, a ton of options that you have to consider. And when you start these efforts, a lot of times it's going to feel like just, swimming in molasses, right? It's not always an easy thing starting to do advertising or starting to do a new thing. And these benchmarks that I've provided are a helpful reference, but they're by no means like the only thing. If you don't hit them, it's not working for you. The goal is to improve. So run your first campaign, 3 to 6 months. Look at your numbers. Next time, you want them this much higher, right? So your best benchmark is beating yourself because your audience is unique. Your nonprofit is unique. Everything about it is contingent on the humans that you're trying to get in front of, and they're different in every scenario. So you're not failing if you're not meeting these benchmarks. You're just learning how to do it better for next time. So I don't know if this was Baby Yoda, whoever had said this, but there's no failure. You either win or you learn. And that's something that I want you guys to really remember as you move forward through these processes. So this will be included in the deck that we'll send out. These are all links to the reports and then also just some like helpful articles that I found, TikTok for Good, etc., that you guys can read into if you're looking to start some of these strategies. And for anybody that wants to know how Feathr might fit into this picture, if it does for you, drop a 1 in the chat, or if you are a user and you're like, oh, I didn't know I could do that, I want to learn more, drop a 2 in the chat, and then Rachel will tally up those numbers and send the appropriate information to you guys in terms of getting started with that, right? And there's also a poll. There we go. So you can either select yes, please, no thanks, or you're already a user, again, the number system works in the chat as well, if that's something that you wanted to do. So while I look back and answer some of the questions in the chat, here is my information, guys. If you have questions that you think like might warrant an actual conversation over just a webinar, please feel free to connect with me on LinkedIn, shoot me something in my inbox, and I'm always happy to schedule some time and just chat through what would actually work right for you in your very unique situation that you're in, because everybody is different. So Bruce, all right, you've got your Feathr meeting tomorrow. I love that. Well, Godspeed. Let me know how it goes. Thank you, Jennifer. Thank you. I think I saw a question. Oh, Alicia. All right. So we've got, how do you determine a starting ad budget that will be effective to start out as a smaller nonprofit, enough to collect data on how it engages folks while getting reach? I love that. Or do you have a recommended budget range? So I will say, Alicia, it depends on how you are planning to do advertising. There are two ways to kind of do this. For example, the Feathr way is a software that charges a license fee. It's a flat rate. And then the ad spend is something that you have to put into it. But because, like, for example, Feathr stays open as a business through our software licenses, there's not an extreme markup on the ad spend. If you wanted to do it through like a Google Ads, right, and start there where you're not investing in a platform, maybe you're not ready for that yet, totally fine. But Google's free for a reason. They mark up the ad spend. So usually it's somewhere to the tune of 40 to 50%. You give them $100, they take 40 to 50 of it, and then they spend the other 50 on your actual advertising efforts. So based on where you would plan to start, in terms of what tool you want to use is kind of like contingent on how much you should budget. We say to our customers who are interested in potentially using the Feathr platform that for any major initiative that you have, if you're a smaller nonprofit, somewhere between $2,000 and $4,000 in advertising spend for the entirety of that major initiative. So we're talking end of year giving. We're talking your capital campaign. We might be talking just a year-long, 12-month running in the background fundraising effort going on, $2,000 to $4,000 through the Feathr platform, because we don't have the same markups that a Google or an agency would. If you're going with a Google or an agency, again, you don't have that initial investment in a software, but you're going to spend more on the ad. So if you're really, going to lean into an ad strategy, I would actually recommend a software because you're going to spend less on the ad spend. Where if you're like, no, I just want to dabble for right now, I don't want to invest in a tool, then I would say something like an ad roll or a Google would be a good place to start, where you can actually just kind of get started with a little bit of budget, but know that if it starts to work really well, you're probably better off with a platform, and then you lose that data. So you can't transfer Google's data over into a platform if you decide, hey, I want to switch my advertising efforts into something that is a little more cost effective long run. So sorry, Alicia, that was a really long rambling answer for you, because it does kind of depend. But if you wanted to, ever chat through that strategy for you specifically and your organization and what you have like the bandwidth and the budget to do right now, happy to do that and kind of nail down what would be better for you. Let's see here. I'm seeing a lot of AI summaries. Thank you guys. Appreciate that. I don't think I see any other questions. If you put a question somewhere earlier in the chat and I missed it, post it again for me. I would appreciate that. I'm not seeing anything. But I'm going to hang around for the next 6 minutes anyway. If anybody has a question or wants to chat, drop it in. Otherwise, thank you seriously, guys, for attending, for paying attention, for being really engaged. Like, I love it when people participate in the chat. It makes me feel like I'm not speaking into a void. So I hope this information was useful and helpful. I will be keeping an eye on the about to be released 2025 reports that will give us a little bit more fresh data moving into 2026, and hopefully developing some content around that. So keep an eye on the Feathr calendar, the Good Marketing Brief, for some updated content as we move into the new year. So thank you. Oh, thank you, Lorenzo. Thank you, Ruff. You guys are amazing for putting all your details in here and saying hi. It makes me feel like there's real humans out there. So thank you. Thank you, Lynette. Thank you. I'm going to say this wrong. Rianne. I hope I said that right. So sorry if I didn't. But anyway, yeah, have a wonderful day, guys. Please do connect with me on LinkedIn. Love to meet new people. I travel a lot, so if I'm in your city, I really will drive and have coffee with you. Love to make a lunch buddy. Yes, Alicia, I will be sending the deck out, absolutely, or Rachel will be. Either way, you will be getting it, and all of those links. Again, the resources are on the last page, but also if you visit a particular slide, there are links at the bottom of each slide where that information was sourced from, so you can do your own research as well. Would love to come visit you at the Hispanic Center. Lorenzo, where did you say that was? You were in Paterson, New Jersey. Love that. Okay, I will keep that in mind if I'm up northern East Coast at any time. Thank you, Alexander. I'm wondering how you see AI changing the process landscape. Alexander, I have so many thoughts on this. I wish I could tell you in 4 minutes, but what I will say is that the opportunity for nonprofits to harness AI is actually the opposite of what you think. I think it will really enhance the human touch moving forward versus taking away from it. Because AI has this amazing ability to efficiently create segments and messages for those segments that will speak to people about who they are. So rather than just putting someone's name, in an email and calling that personalized, AI is going to say, Kimberly as a human is motivated by this based on her behaviors online. And then you can actually use that information to serve the messages that are meaningful to them. And you can do it on a very, small scale with a small team on a relatively small budget. And it just makes that targeting more efficient, and just feel better for the person on the other side of the screen. So we do actually have quite a few articles in the Feathr Resources Hub around the evolution of AI, how Feathr uses AI, how other nonprofit tools and technology companies are using it as well. So visit our resources page on the Feathr website if you want to kind of browse through and see what we have on AI. But I really think it provides a wealth of opportunity for nonprofits. And the key, I think, moving forward is don't do it all. There's so many options out there. Find the thing that you're like, you know what, this is something I want to improve on. AI can probably help me with that and go down that path rather than just exploring every opportunity for AI because there's just so many of them you'll get lost and hey, nobody got time for that. So I'm excited about the opportunities moving forward with AI in the nonprofit space for sure. Let's see here. I found AI never comes across as personal. It can be really, really tough, Bruce, in terms of using AI for messaging. Like if you're creating messaging, I like AI more for segmentation and targeting. It's going to get you the right human, and then you know your message. Nobody knows your message better than you. So you can curate that message based on who you know you're targeting. AI makes it easier to reach those folks with that right message for sure. And then Alexander says, I hear what you're saying, how to leverage it, but I wonder if that's good or if that's cheating. Alexander, I don't think it's cheating if everybody's doing it. Is that fair? I don't know. Maybe that's a cop out. But just because it's not that you would ever want to use AI in an unethical way, but I would actually argue that using AI to target people based on their online behaviors is more ethical and less cheating than buying a list from somebody and sending mailers to people that didn't give you direct consent for their first party information, right? So there are some previous fundraising practices that are a little on the questionable side that I think would actually be much better replaced by AI targeting, because it is actually more ethical and less like cheating. Because when I'm living my life online, I'm opting in. I'm saying, yeah, I accept those cookies. I'm okay with tracking because it personalizes my experience. You're just using the benefit of that permission to get in front of the right people with the right message. Alexander, I like that. Thank you. Agreed. All right. It works. I love that. All right. Sounds good. Agreed, Bruce. Great. Well, thank you guys so much for being so interactive and putting all of these questions and comments in the chat. I will see you again soon. I'll be presenting a webinar with my wonderful friend Sam Swain, of Swain Strategies in December. I hope to see you then. And if not, guys, Godspeed. It's end of year giving, but take breaks, drink water, make sure you're eating meals, practice self-care, and email me if you need somebody to pump you up because I'm always there to be your hype woman. All right. Thank you guys so much. Have a wonderful day.